Well, hello. Decided to come down to the beach since it was sunny out. It's sunny over here, but not over there. So, yeah, this is my beach, Whidbey Island. Right over there is the Olympic Mountains. Behind me is the Cascade Mountains in Seattle. Yeah, it's kind of a neat place to live. I like living on an island. There's this isolation thing that really isn't isolation if you live here, but everybody else thinks you're isolating yourself. But it's a big island. It's got a lot of people on it. The houses up here on the hill behind me are owned by people like the Hiltons and the Nordstroms and a bunch of other people that are names that you would recognize in the retail industry and all sorts of things. And they help keep our taxes low because they don't want to pay for anything. So anyway, it is what it is. But they're only here during the summer and on holidays once in a while. And the rest of us year-rounders, we've got it to ourselves most of the time. But it is a very energetic place. Things happen here energetically that they don't anywhere else. Like this little spot of land I'm on here, it's called the Blue Hole. And this is a perfect day to see it because of the Olympic Mountains. The sky over my head is blue, but it's just a big hole in the clouds, which clouds all the way around us. But this blue hole is like a vortex for the weather because of the Olympic Mountains, and our prevailing weather comes out of Hawaii. And that mountain range there blocks out the weather and causes it to go around the mountains heading north of us and south of us, and then it comes together east of us. So this little section, and it's probably about a good, I don't know, 50 to maybe even 100-mile diameter hole that opens up, but it moves according to where the weather's coming from. But we get 12 inches of rain here, and just 5 miles down the road, they get 36 inches a year. You go across the water here, and if you stay directly west of us, you see Port Townsend and and then all the way up to Port Angeles. They're part of this blue hole too, but they're right on the fringe of it because they're closer to the mountain base. And due west out near Forks, it's where they shot that one TV show, I don't know, about Draculas and wolves over in Forks. But Forks, they don't measure the rain in inches over there. They measure it in feet. And it's it's a rainforest. It literally is a subtropical rainforest, and it gets a heck of a lot of rain. So that weather pattern means that we get 12 inches of rain a year. The rest of the western state here gets about 3 feet, 36 inches or so. So it's interesting because I can see it snowing or raining or blowing or whatever weather just up the road, and they come here and the sun's out and the sky's blue, and at least over our heads. But I'm looking off to the west, and it is not just cloudy, it is black. And I think behind me we got a little bit of the same. Over to the south is Hood's Canal, and over on Hood's Canal is the Bangor submarine base. And due west of me is a place called Marrowstone Island, which is a Navy offloading base for armament. So when the ships come in, they offload nuclear weapons and all that stuff over there. They can't bring them into the inside of the waters here. So it's a really interesting place. But if you ever want to experience duality, this is where you come to understand it, because everything here just speaks of it. When you live on the beach, duality is everything. You're either part of the island or you're part of the water. So it's that's the duality. And the fact that we are on the water means that that water is pretty much constant all the time at about 52 degrees or 40, maybe in the high 40, 49, 48, but it doesn't vary that much. So it controls the weather here. Our temperature living on the island is warmer than everywhere else because of the water. It's that water's temperature that will give us a layer of fog if it gets into that area where we have a big dew point. But that fog also keeps us at a temperature, because the thing with water, fresh water, can't get below 32 degrees. It turns to ice, and that's as cold as it'll get. But the atmosphere can get down below zero, in which case the water is still warmer than the air. And there's a lot of things I've learned living on this island, and it has to do with the energy. It's like a little, I don't know what to call it, but we have an overabundance of people like myself who are very much aware of energy and how it works and all of that. So it is an eclectic community. It ranges from millionaires to paupers, but it is a heavily artsy community, and it's a lot of fun. It's a good place to live. I wouldn't want to live here if I was working every day again. I did that I've been here we moved here in 2004, so it's 20 years, 22 that I've been here, and half of that time I worked off of the island, so I had to commute off of here and take the ferry every day and all that stuff. But the lifestyle, if you're especially at my age now, without all the family running around, going to school and getting kids to school and all of that, it's really quiet and peaceful. And like I said, it's a great place to live. I was going to take a walk on the beach, but I haven't mastered this walking and talking and carrying the camera and all that stuff yet, so I'm going to just sit. Yeah, I just not really sure what I want to talk about. I've got so much on my mind that I was going to say, but I don't know. This just kind of peaceful setting down here on the beach. The waves are just lapping up, and I think what I'm going to do is go for a walk, and I'll show you around. So hold on while I get myself set here. Okay, and we'll go do a little hike and see if I can get this thing to be able to keep the camera on me and still show you some stuff. So I'm going to flip this around so you can see the sights and see the clouds off to the west, like I was saying. And this this is the one place on the island where if we have a tsunami, these houses are toast. And the nearest hill is where I live. I'm at the top of this hill, but that hill's only 75 feet high. But I don't think we'd get anything that ever go up that high. But there is evidence that down the way, because that cliff face right there used to run clear across to that land on the other side, and that was enclosed this whole Puget Sound that a billion years ago or millions of years ago. This was all fresh water on this side of that cliff face, and on the other side was the ocean. So when this broke away, it all filled in with salt water. But I don't know, there's got to be close to 100 rivers coming off of the mountains in to feed this Puget Sound area. And that's just a lot of water, and the salt water just eats it up. But we have fish runs, salmon and everything, halibut, the whales come in, and the dolphins come in, and I get to see them right here off of my beach. You know, out there right now, I don't know if you can see it, but there's the buoys out there. Each one of them has a cormorant sitting on top of it. Off over that ways, some more houses. There's Knob Hill there. So from time to time I'll probably come down here because there's a lot of stuff to see, especially down there at the cliff face. I love it down on that, reading that cliff. There's all these layers of strata of rock, pebbles to boulders, and they fall out of that hill every once in a while. You kind of tell right now there is a lot of trees that are actually hanging off. They've tipped over, they're out over the cliff face hanging down. In the summertime, the cruise ships from the Caribbean come up here to Seattle, and every evening we have 3 ships going out. They start at about 5:30 and the last one heads out about 6:30, one behind the other. And they will pass out through here and out through the Straits of Juan de Fuca and then up to Alaska. And they run that all summer long. I've been on it twice. Or no, I've only been on the Alaska cruise once. So. But it is a nice place to live. Peaceful and quiet, the waves lapping up. And if the weather isn't bad, from time to time I come down and set up the easel and do some paintings down here, but a lot of times it's just sketching. I'm going to walk down here by the cliff so I can show you kind of what it looks like. But when we have a storm, all this driftwood really gets piled up. It's kind of washed its way out a little bit since last year, but the storm season now is just coming to an end. November and March is when we get big storms, and we just had one yesterday that blew through here. We need to start getting, and we're supposed to have another one tonight, but the winds are only going to be 35 or 40 mile an hour. The other thing I'm waiting for is I have an eagle we call Happy, and an osprey I call Ollie. Ollie the osprey and Happy the eagle. They will usually, in a little bit later in the year, they'll be up here in the treetops, and whenever I come down here on the beach, they let me know they're here. And had some kayaks here last summer, so we got the kayak around out here, and they would always show up whenever we got out there. You can see that tree right there. It is literally hanging on by its roots off the side of the cliff. And there's probably a half a dozen more that are just getting ready to do the same thing. Well, maybe more than that. Looks like we're getting ready to have a tree fall. But the roots are, you can see, they're not hanging out over into the air. The roots are mostly back in the ground. So they go way back up in there and holding that tree. But these trees are just amazing. I don't know if you've ever thought about it, but to pick up a bucket of water that weighs 8 pounds and carry it to the top of that tree, you would never, it'd be just a bear cat of a job. I don't think I could ever do it, no matter what. Even if I was tied to a rope and they hoisted me, it'd be hard to hang on to it. But that tree, just by the action of the wind blowing on the branches and on the trunk of it and making it sway from time to time, pumps water from the ground all the way up to the top of that thing. And you go down to the redwoods in California, they're 400 feet high, That's a lot of water to lift that high up, and that's why they can't grow more than about what they are. That's the maximum level, I think, is 400 feet that you can lift water. If you're in a building and they're to flush a toilet on the top floor of the Twin Towers, they probably had to go through 5 pumping stations to get the water up there. And boy, I wouldn't want to be sitting at the toilet on the ground level if somebody at the top flushed it. Might blow you right off the stool. That's part of the engineering. So here, there used to be a boathouse down here on the water that is no longer here. In fact, the Nordstroms bought that and built their houses there. But you can see here, that's the remnants of a path from the houses up above that used to come down to the beach. And then they had a dock out here. And so it has all washed away. And I remember when this was still operational, it came all the way down because they had this gate down here. And they had to replace both of these because the whole cliff face fell down. Look at all these rocks tell you when this is not real recent, but within decades, most of these rocks fell out. And it always amazed me in how, now I got a feeling though that these biggest rocks got brought in here and dumped to keep the bank from going any further, because there's big rocks in that hillside, but I haven't seen anything that big recently. So this is just kind of odd, but you can see the striations up there, the different levels, and just about, well, a lot of them are glacial, but most of them are caused because of the volcanic action on the mountains over in the Olympics and the ash that was piled up on top of everything. So if we go up here, and you can see the rocks, they're so round and weathered. And even in the hillside, they're all round, smooth rocks. They're not big, jagged things that, like some of these. That one right there, for instance, has a drill mark in it. So this came out of a mine somewhere. They blew that out of the rock. So yeah, this got brought in. But there's a nice little stump that rolled in here, and that was probably a tree up on top at one time. But that rock layer right there, they're round and smooth because they've been tumbled down a river or in the glacier or whatever. But I really want to get my gold pan and my sluice box down here, because anything that has that much gravel in it has got to be loaded up with some gold and silver. But look at this. This is a pyroclastic flow right here. This is all ash. Something blew right here and put all of this into this cliff face. But gosh, that's like, I don't know, a million years ago. So, these are the places I get to explore on my island. It kind of takes me back to like when I was a kid, because I grew up in an area where we used to go exploring all the time. Anyway, I just thought you guys would be interested in seeing the island from my perspective. There's that crazy tree again. So anyway, I guess I'll talk to you guys later.